What if everything you believed about failure was wrong? Not slightly off. Not a minor misinterpretation. Completely, fundamentally, devastatingly wrong. Most of us grew up learning that failure is the opposite of success. That it's something to be ashamed of, hidden, avoided at all costs. We watched friends give up on dreams because they stumbled once, maybe twice. We've done the same ourselves. We've abandoned goals, suppressed ambitions, and played it safe, all to dodge that one terrible word, failure. But what if failure isn't the enemy of success? What if it's actually the language through which success speaks to us? Raw, honest, and remarkably precise. In 1985, a 30-year-old man was publicly fired from the company he had founded. Not quietly let go. Not eased out through a polite restructuring. Fired. By his own board. In front of the world. His name was Steve Jobs. After being ousted from Apple, Jobs described the experience as devastatingly humiliating. He had built that company from a garage. He had poured his identity, his vision, and his soul into every pixel of every product. And then, in a boardroom vote, it was taken from him. Here's what most people forget. Jobs didn't bounce back immediately. He didn't post an inspirational tweet and pivot in 48 hours. He grieved. He spiraled. He considered leaving Silicon Valley entirely. But then something shifted. Freed from the pressure of running Apple, he started listening to what that colossal failure was telling him. It told him he had been too controlling. It told him he had confused his identity with a product. It told him he had more to learn about people, collaboration, and the intersection of technology and art. So he started next. He acquired a little animation studio called Pixar. He went to work, not to prove people wrong but to grow into what the failure had revealed he needed to become. When Apple eventually brought Jobs back in 1997, it was nearly bankrupt. Within a decade he had turned it into the most valuable company on earth. The iPhone, the iPod, the iMac, the App Store. A transformation so total it rewrote the rules of entire industries. None of it happens without the 1985 firing. The failure wasn't a detour. It was the most direct route. Before we can embrace failure, we need to understand why we're so terrified of it. Neuroscience gives us a sobering answer. The brain processes social rejection, including the humiliation of public failure, in the same regions it processes physical pain. That's not metaphor. That's biology. When you fail and feel like you're dying inside, your nervous system is responding to a very real threat signal. For our ancestors, failure often meant exactly that, death. Fail to hunt, you starve. Fail to read, danger, your prey. The fear of failure kept early humans alive. But here's the brutal irony. In the modern world, that same survival mechanism has become the single greatest barrier to growth. It keeps us in jobs that shrink us. It keeps us silent in meetings where we have something to say. It keeps us from launching the business, writing the book, having the honest conversation, or taking the leap. We are running 200,000-year-old software on a 21st century operating system, and it's producing bugs everywhere. The solution isn't to eliminate fear. It's to reframe what failure means. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Failure is not a verdict. It is feedback. A verdict is final. It defines you. It closes doors. Feedback is information. It redirects you. It opens possibilities. When a scientist runs an experiment that doesn't yield the expected result, she doesn't consider herself a failed scientist. She considers herself a better informed one. She writes down what happened, asks why, adjusts the hypothesis, and runs the experiment again. The failure is the most valuable part of the scientific method. Without it, there is no discovery. Why should your life be any different? Every time you launch something and it flops, the failure is telling you something about timing, positioning, or audience. Every relationship that ends is teaching you something about your needs, your patterns, or your communication style. Every pitch rejected, every audition failed, every application denied, all of it is data, arriving in real time, begging to be decoded. The question is never, did I fail? The question is always, what is this failure trying to teach me? When failure strikes, and it will, high performers don't ask, why me? They ask 3 surgical questions. 1. What specifically didn't work and why? 2. What would I do differently knowing what I know now? 3. What strength did this failure reveal that I didn't know I had? There's a quiet tragedy unfolding in millions of lives right now. It's not the tragedy of people who tried and failed. It's the tragedy of people who never tried at all, because failure felt too dangerous, too permanent, too defining. Psychologists call this failure avoidance, and its long-term effects are devastating. Studies consistently show that people regret the things they didn't do far more than the things they did but failed at. The unlaunched business haunts more than the launched one that flopped. The unspoken "I love you" aches longer than the one that went unreturned. Playing it safe is not actually safe. It's the slow erosion of possibility. It's choosing the guaranteed disappointment of a smaller life over the uncertain adventure of a bigger one. The risk is not in failing. The risk is in never finding out what you were actually capable of. When Jobs stood on stage in 2005 to deliver his now legendary Stanford commencement address, he said something that stopped the room. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. He wasn't performing humility. He wasn't spinning a corporate narrative. He was reporting what he had discovered after years of honest reflection, that the failure had been the making of him. And here's the thing, Steve Jobs was not a uniquely resilient superhuman. He was a deeply flawed, often difficult person who made a choice. The choice to ask what the failure meant. The choice to grow into the answer. The choice to come back, not as the same person who was fired, but as someone the experience had fundamentally transformed. That choice is available to every single one of us. Not just the Jobses of the world. Not just the founders and the CEOs and the people whose failures make headlines. You with your specific failures, your specific wounds, your specific dreams that got derailed. The feedback is already there, waiting in your setbacks. The question is whether you're ready to listen. One final thought. Somewhere inside you right now is a version of yourself that tried something, stumbled, and quietly concluded that the stumble meant something permanent about your capabilities or your worth. It didn't. It meant you were in the arena. It meant you were alive to possibility. It meant you were doing something that mattered enough to risk failing at. That stumble was not a verdict. It was a teacher. Go back to class. Ready to rewrite your relationship with failure? If this article landed for you, here's your next step, and it's a small one. Pick one failure from your past, something you've avoided thinking about, and write down 3 things it tried to teach you. Not in a journal. Not in a private note app. On actual paper with an actual pen in your actual handwriting. There's something about the physical act that makes the insight stick. Then share it. With a friend, a mentor, a colleague, or a stranger on the internet who needs to hear that failure doesn't have to be the end of the story. Because somewhere out there, someone is standing at the edge of their 1985 moment, about to give up. Your story might be the thing that keeps them going. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it today. And if you're walking through your own season of setbacks right now, drop a comment below. You're not as alone in this as you think. Like and subscribe.